Welcome in, Big Blue Nation, to another episode of the Cats Talk podcast. I'm your host, Cameron Johnston. He is your host, Jacob Boyers. Jacob, unfortunately, just a ton of bad news over the weekend for the Kentucky Wildcats. Not only do they lose to the Auburn Tigers, which I think we both kind of saw coming, even though, we tried to get the reverse jinxes going like we have been. Didn't work in our favor. Cats lose 94 to 78. And Jaxson Robinson out for the year. Just such a wild game. ABC had a fire that you couldn't watch the last 13 minutes of the game. Just all the things that happened over the weekend. Give me some of your big takeaways from it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, just a brutal weekend for UK basketball across the board. I know we'll get into the Jaxson news and what it means, but just in regards to the game, my big takeaway is, Kentucky made a lot of mistakes and didn't play great, and Auburn is easily the best team in the nation, I think, like kind of we thought. And when you're playing the number one team in the country, whether it's at home or not, you can't really make a lot of mistakes to let them hang around. And when you're blowing easy layups, making bad turnovers, unable to even get shots off, and they bank in 2 threes, you can see where you get down 16 and be down for 15 most of the game.
Yeah, so many things went wrong in this game for the Cats, and really were kind of highlighted by the first 6 possessions in the second half.
Yep.
Cats start off with 6 straight turnovers to begin second half and really just put themselves out of the game from there. Because I had texted you at halftime saying, man, this should be like a 5-point game, and they were down 15 at half. A lot of that has to do with something we've continued to, portray on this podcast, is that can Lamont Butler make anything inside of 3 feet? He literally missed 5 wide open layups in this game. One of them he got fouled on. I kind of want to give him a 6th open miss layup because he barely got touched on that one. Got called for a flagrant foul when, kind of slapped the guy in the face on a layup that wasn't even called on the floor. So many booth reviews, all this. So many things happened. This game's so weird. Just talk about Lamont here and what you thought you saw from here in this game.
Yeah, don't get me started on the booth reviews because you know my opinions on the refs and the replays. Yeah, I mean, obviously, not a good game. 7 of 8 from the free throw line. That's a number that does stand out to me as is probably the one positive. The bigger number outside of, I think, the blown layups, because I mean, I don't get it. I mean, him and Owe, even at times, like, just not being consistent finishers around the rim, I think really can kind of kill this team. But 1 assist to 5 turnovers. Like I talked about against Oklahoma, how much Lamont meant, just because his ability to get to the lane, and then he's able to make good passes from there and find guys behind the arc for open shots. But part of it was Auburn just saying, hey, you can get whatever you want at the rim. We'll let the Cats get to the rim. They can do whatever they want there. We're not giving up threes. And I think it was just a really good game plan by Bruce Pearl as well.
Yeah, and you're being a little too generous giving him the 1 assist. He didn't have any assist in this game. So 5 turnovers to no assists for Lamont. And I'm telling you, just between the two of them, him and Ortega, we left 20 points on the board from missed layups in this game from the two of them. Just, he never really got a flow of the game going. I thought, he turned the ball over and then picked the guy's pocket on the very next one, made the layup. I thought that was really going to be what kind of changed the trajectory for the Cats in this game to get them back into it. Just never really happened. You mentioned the 7 of 8 from the free throw line. That's good and all, but when you're missing 5, 6 easy layups, doesn't necessarily matter when you're going 7 of 8. Lamont, he means a lot to this team, but without Jaxson Robinson, if he's not going to be able to finish at the rim, I'm just not sure how this offense is going to be able to consistently score, the 85 to 90 points they need to win games, especially because we know defensively the best we're going to be able to do, especially against a tournament level team, is keeping them in the low 80s. We got to get above that 85 mark. We were just chatting about it. They've done it once in the past 9 games where they've gotten over 84 points. Offense is really struggling lately. I mean, Ortega had a lot to do with it in this game. What are you thinking about the offense?
Yeah, I don't get it. This game, I feel like especially, was a pretty big, red flag and disappointment. I don't understand why. I understand Auburn, like I just said, Bruce Pearl's game plan was give Kentucky whatever they wanted at the rim, but part of that is you got to be more assertive and say we're going to do what we want to do. We're not going to play, the way the other team demands we play. And all we heard all offseason was Mark Pope talk about how this team's going to take 30 to 35 threes a game. And we took 17 in this one. Outside of Kobe Bryant, nobody even made one. Ortega didn't attempt one. Very few coming from guys off the bench. The offense, I want these guys to shoot a lot more. Like, even Andrew Carr, I feel like shoots only if he's wide open. Brea is still extremely hesitant at times from behind the arc. Like, we're not a good enough team and athletic enough to just say we're going to play one-on-one and, get to the rim. And especially without Jaxson being there to create a shot, like, these guys, if they get a sliver of room, they're going to have to take the threes, and we're going to have to shoot 25 to 30, I think.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of highlighted in between the end of the first half and the beginning of the second half. We went 11 minutes without a field goal in this game.
Yeah, that's
in between halves. I mean, offense was just so stagnant, and obviously, the Oklahoma game, it turned out how we wanted to. But without Ortega, we were struggling to score there at the end of that game as well.
Yeah.
Just right now, this offense, it has no flow, and you got to have guys that are willing to shoot and get shots. Because right now, I don't know if you've noticed as well, the amount of possessions we're getting per game is really starting to dwindle down as well. Because we're not playing fast, we're not shooting early in the shot clock. Shot clock's getting dwindled down a lot lately. I know we're starting to run through Amari a little bit more than we had previously, and it's working at some time. But with the way our defense is allowing 3-point shots, I mean, Auburn went 12 of 26 in this game. Trading twos for threes when we're not good defensively is just not a good recipe for success.
Yeah, I agree, and I really do think a lot of it could be solved if these guys would just pull the trigger more. I mean, Kobe Bryant, probably played, easily the second best game on the team. Maybe make an argument between him and Amari, but like there were still times where he's coming off a ball screen, and it's just like, just let the thing fly, and he's pump faking or trying to drive to the basket, or that would lead to a turnover. Like, Kobe Bryant especially, like, if he has an inch of room, I want him to shoot it. Because you see it too, like, these other teams, a lot of times, they're getting those fouls on the threes coming off of screens because people are trying to fight through it. And, like, it's like, we're just not taking that shot. Nobody on the team is, Between Ortega, Carr, and Lamont, like, those three guys feel like they have to be wide open. Nobody within 5 feet of them for them to even think about taking it.
Yeah, and honestly, for two of those guys, I'm kind of fine with that. I want Andrew Carr to shoot.
At some point, somebody's got to start shooting on my thing.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, hopefully, I really like the minutes you've been getting from Kobe Bryant. I mean, he had played 38 minutes in this game. I think at any point in time, we didn't expect Kobe to be playing 38 minutes. And 7 of 11 from the field, 4 of 7 from 3. And, just thinking, like, off the top of my head, obviously ABC cut out with 13 minutes left in this game. So just from what I was able to watch, there was 3 or 4 times where I'm yelling for Kobe to shoot the ball that he didn't, and he still went 4 of 7 from 3. Yeah, so I think especially with Jaxson not being there, there's just extra shots that have to go around. And when you have, Otega Owe, who 2 out of his last 3 games have been the worst of his career, highlighted by one that was the best game in his career. So you're getting such a volatile Otega Owe without Jaxson Robinson. Kobe we're getting to the point where I think he's got to shoot 15 times a game. Obviously, they don't have to all be threes. He's showing an ability to get into the lane. He's shooting mid-range jumpers and knocking them down. If we're going to get to that, 85-plus points per game, which is where we need to be to succeed, I think Kobe's got to be shooting at least 15 times.
Couldn't agree more. Like, this version of Kobe would be phenomenal if you had Jaxson Robinson.
Yeah.
If you had another scorer out there. But, like, we really need, and I kind of feel bad, like, saying it because I do think Kobe played really well, so I don't want to make it sound like I'm, like, harping on him. But, like,
he did, yeah.
We almost, like, we just need, we've talked about it with, like, some of the bench guys, right, in the past. When these guys are out, guys are having to step into roles that they're not used to playing. And I think Kobe's going to step into the role of being the primary wing scorer. And there's ways for him to do that, whether it's like we talked about, coming off screens and shooting the ball. He's getting better and better driving the basketball. Like, he's one of the few guys I feel pretty good at taking a contested layup. He doesn't do it a lot, but when he does, he finishes it. So I just think, I don't know what Pope needs to tell him, but hopefully, he can get him to understand, like, hey, you're going to be our primary wing scorer, and you can't shoot the ball too many times. There's not a number where we're going to tell you to slow down.
Yeah, especially if he's going to be out there for 38 minutes. I mean,
Yeah.
you're going to have to get those shots up. And I really don't see those numbers going down much either, especially the way Travis, Colin, and Ansley, and even Trent have been playing. I mean, none of those guys right now are vying for extra minutes. So Kobe's got to get those shots up and get the attempts. The one thing I can't stand about this entire team right now is nobody's coming off of screens hard at all. Nobody's coming off of screens looking for their shot. They're looking for like two dribble pull up, something like that, or looking for the next pass. At some point, our shooters have to be ready to come off of screens, ready to shoot. And like you mentioned earlier, I mean, how many fouls have we gotten called on threes? I mean, you saw one on called on Andrew Carr, he didn't even touch the guy. At this point, I mean, our defense is so bad. I'd rather play 4-on-5 defensively down there because more than likely we're giving up a bucket regardless, and try and go for get the foul call. At this point, I mean, like you mentioned, 17 threes against number 1 ranked Auburn, where you turn the ball over 18 times. It's not nearly enough to try and make up that ground.
No, and I really do think like we just got to see these guys get more aggressive again. Kobe Bryant, there's not a number that he can shoot that I'm not happy with, but like if we could just get him to be more of a volume shooter, he can be a really good player for like a really good team. I mean, you're seeing it. He's getting better at rebounding the basketball. Like we talked about, he's getting better at driving the basketball. The other thing, knock on wood, because it'll probably now happen tomorrow night, but like he's getting better defensively, but he's also like he's not a guy that ever gets in foul trouble. So to your point of like, he played almost 38 minutes and you see that continuing, like I do too. Like he obviously is a guard that's in good shape so he can stay out there, and then he doesn't put himself in bad position on defense to get called for fouls. So there's no reason going forward and I think he will continue to play 37, 38 minutes. So he's just got to be more aggressive when he's out there.
Yeah, completely agree. And, it's crazy we're saying all this, and he still, had 11 shot attempts, scored 21 points. But just to fill in for that Jaxson Robinson role, we were talking about how Kobe needed to hit 3 threes, and that was with Jaxson Robinson for us to win these games. Yeah. So obviously the expectations are going to increase for Kobe. Somebody who the expectations seemingly keep increasing and he keeps delivering. I mean, Amari Williams, outside of the turnovers, which obviously he had 6 in this game, and I think 2 of them were a part of those first 6 turnovers in the second half. Obviously, nobody on the team looked good at that time. But Amari Williams, 31 minutes, we're starting to see him finally get, those minutes pushed further and further. I think with, the sleight of hand we have with, it's really only BG coming off the bench for our bigs. He's starting to push Amari more and more. But 13 points, 14 rebounds, 3 of 5 from the field, 7 assists as well. And, I told you I really like the matchup of him and Janiah Broome. I thought that was something that Amari could win. And really he did, especially, if you had told me just that matchup alone, tell me Andrew Carr gives you 20, Kobe Bryant gives you 21. There's some of these stats that I look at and I'm like, man, we got a really good shot of winning this game. Yeah. But I think, 18 turnovers and only making 4 threes was kind of the derail of the entire game.
Yeah, real quick before I talk about Amari, one positive of this game I do think is that we saw Pope essentially kind of acknowledge, like, I have my 5 best players. I'm just going to have to play them as much as possible, right? 30 plus minutes for Lamont, 30 plus for Amari, 38 for Kobe, and then really the only starter that didn't play a ton was Ortega, but that was because of foul trouble. So that was one positive for me to see, because I think especially going forward without Jaxson, like that's going to have to we got our 5, we're just going to have to go. So I did want to make that point. It was nice to see Amari finally get over 30. But yeah, to your point, Amari, just another really nice game. I mean, we had 12 assists as a team, and he had 7 of them. To your point, I know he made 6 turnovers, but I also felt like he completely dominated the matchup against Broome, especially when he was in the primary defender, and 13 and 14, and without him, you're getting ran by 25 in this game, but especially in the first half, he was able to kind of keep you within striking distance.
Yeah, how many times does it feel like in the past, 6 games,
game.
we're saying we're just he's not on the court, it's a 25-plus point loss. And really, the only game that wasn't the case with the Oklahoma one is probably his worst game he's had in quite a while, and we were able to win that one. So it's so hard for me to be able to sit here and tell you we need this, this, and this to happen. Because it seems like whenever we say that, the exact opposite happens and they win. So, I mean, let's just talk. We're going to have to talk about Ortega away. Obviously, glowing reviews about him after the Oklahoma game. This game, I mean, just quite literally the exact opposite. Played 20 minutes in this game, 4 points, 1 of 3 from the field. 2 of those were missed layups around the rim. No rebounds in 20 minutes, 1 assist, 1 turnover, and just stupid fouls. I mean, he came in, coach trusted him when he got his second foul, let him in, picked up a quick third, did the exact same thing in the second half to pick up his fourth. Just never a factor in this game. And at some point, Mr. Consistency's got to come back to Mr. Consistency because he's been anything but consistent the past 3.
Yeah, goes all the way through. I don't know how many games. What have we played? 29. So he goes through 26 games, scoring double digits in every game and being extremely consistent. Now 2 out of 3, scored 2 and 4. So yeah, he's got to get back to Mr. Consistency. But I think you said it perfect. Like non-factor. He never got into a rhythm in this game. Only took 3 shots, 2 free throws. Just there was 0 rhythm, 0 flow, and I mean that happens when you get in early foul trouble. But to your point, when Pope puts him back in there with 2 fouls, like you're being told to go in there and like obviously like you can't predict not fouling, right? Like there's certain times where you get caught in a bad situation or even a bad call, but that wasn't the case. Like they were just plays you can't put yourself in that position, and I do feel like he's done that multiple times this year. And then obviously in a big game like Auburn, in a game where we're struggling to score, we're struggling to keep the first half close, like you got to go in there and you got to be smarter and essentially just attack on the offensive end.
Yeah, I can't remember if it was his 3rd or his 4th foul that he picked up, but it was just on a clear box out of Janiah Broome has him boxed out on a free throw, tries to go over the top. I mean, Janiah Broome's a good rebounder. He's got 6-7 inches on Otega away. Just an insanely stupid play, to say the least. That's how he picked up a foul that basically sat him out for the rest of this game. And, obviously, we've mentioned he couldn't watch the last 13 minutes, but he obviously played a good amount in that, didn't foul out in this game, and he still wasn't a factor. And that's kind of the problem I've had with Otega Oweh this entire season is that if he's not clicking on the offensive end, if he's not getting the ball the way he wants, if he's not, attacking the rim consistently, he's just a non-factor on both sides of the court. And it's really concerning, especially because when Jackson's gone out, you've needed him more and more. And on one of those games, he stepped up, but it feels like on more than one occasion lately, he just hasn't been that guy that you want him to be.
Yeah, I mean, you saw it at Oklahoma. I mean, he was obviously getting everything to work on the offensive side, but he had the same defensive intensity and, makes the game-winning block. It's, I do agree with you. When things just aren't going his way, he essentially just disappears. We saw it at Alabama, and then you see it in this one. Like, there's just essentially nothing once he doesn't get a couple shots to fall or whatever. But again, I mean, only took 3 shots in this game. Like every game we're talking about him, he's taken, 15 plus shots. Like for him to only take 3 in 20 minutes is kind of mind-boggling too.
Yeah, everything about this game is mind-boggling. I mean, really, I'm sitting here. There's so many talking points I don't want to get to. Not being able to watch the game is one of them. I mean, I couldn't tell you the last time. Like, imagine if this was a 2 possession game late in this half.
If they just cut it to like 8 and like we couldn't watch it, like people would be losing their minds.
Dude, I had to go to a formal. I would have just left here and went straight down to Lexington and figure out what was going on and try and get there in time. I would have broken down the doors of Rupp Arena to see what's going on. And that's just one of the storylines. I mean, this game is just so weird on so many levels. Obviously, BG wasn't really not much of a talking point in this game. Didn't play bad. I will say came in, very first time he got subbed in, immediate turnover. He literally touched the ball. First guy was inbounded to, immediate turnover. As Jay Billis says, they scored the touchdown right after, turnover to a touchdown. They scored right off of it. And, I mean, Brandon Garrison continues to be so inconsistent. I mean, 12 minutes in this one, 12 minutes, no rebounds.
Yep,
I mean, I just don't understand how you can be 6'10" with that body size and not accidentally run into at least one rebound over 12 minutes of play.
Well, we've talked about it game after game. Like every rebound he does get, I say it, like it just falls into his lap. And this game he went out there and played 12 minutes, and not a single one fell into his lap. So he walked away with a goose egg. Like that's unacceptable from a 6'10" big man. at any level of basketball, let alone, at this high level in the SEC. Like, it's just pure energy, and you saw how good he can be at Oklahoma. But we said it at the time, like, it's one good game and then about 6 bad games. So, I mean, I guess if we make a deep enough run in March, we can see another great BG game. But yeah, just another very poor performance out of Garrison.
Yeah, and I almost completely skipped over Andrew Carr. Didn't even mean to skip over him. Andrew Carr had a really good game in this one as well.
Yeah.
28 minutes on 7 of 11 from the floor. And like you mentioned, passed up a good amount of 3 opportunities. I mean, obviously he was 0 for 2 in this game, but that 3 has been looking better and better. 20 points overall, only 2 rebounds in 28 minutes. Would like to see that go up a lot. But, I mean, we're talking about 2 of your big men that play significant minutes at 2 total rebounds, and yet you still out-rebounded Auburn by 15. Yeah. It's crazy to think of. Obviously, 14 of those rebounds were Amari Williams, so he had a big thing to do with it. But, I mean, you're seeing it's really just an effort thing. Like, you're seeing consistent effort from Kobe Bryant to go get rebounds. You're seeing Trent Noah give you consistent effort to get rebounds. Right now, I hate to call guys out for effort because it's hard to tell on screen sometimes. But it really feels like there's just some guys that are all effort the entire time they're out there, and there's other guys that are just out there for little spells at a time.
Yeah, I agree completely. I think we've, said at times who those guys that don't give you the effort are. But yeah, in regards to Andrew Carr, another really good game. It feels like he's obviously getting more and more comfortable with the back. Just on paper, like, Auburn's obviously a really tough matchup for somebody like Carr because they're so athletic and, they can play Broom and Cardwell at the same time. So, like, on paper, this would have been a game I would have thought he struggled in, and he goes 7 for 11 from the floor and scores 20 points. So I was obviously thrilled with what you got from Andrew Carr, and, the healthier he gets, the better I like this team. But, to the point earlier, like, just need him to be a little more aggressive at times from behind the arc.
Yeah, we do need a little bit more of a defensive presence for him to allow. I mean, obviously, we're really just praying right now for any answers that we can get. I mean, really, I think even Janiah Broom, the only time he scored was on Andrew Carr or Brandon Garrison when they got the switch off. I mean, not to beat a dead horse, but Amari's just been so great as of late. I mean, even just defensively in this game against Broom. And speaking of which, I just want to say it. Let Janiah Broom shoot whatever 3 he wants to. If we got to face Auburn in the SEC tournament, for the love of God, I mean, if we just have to play 5 guys in the paint and you're just going to just let him shoot 3s all you want. Amari might be shooting better from 3 than he is.
Only 3 of 9 from the field and 3 of 7 from the free throw line. So kind of agree. Amari, for the most part, kind of had his way with Broom.
Yeah, and that's the player of the year? All right, yeah. All right. Next topic. Travis Perry, 7 minutes in this game. No points, a rebound. I mean, again, we're going to say it about a lot of these guys, really just kind of a non-factor in this one as well. I mean, I'm getting to the point now where if Travis gives you anywhere from like 8 to 12 minutes and he's not a huge liability defensively, I'll take it. But, I mean, even in this game, Chad Baker-Mazara, Miles Kelly, Tahad Pettiford all went for 20-plus in this game, and a good amount of those were on Travis Perry as well, even in only the 8 minutes. He's got to be able to give you something on the offensive side of the ball. He's got to be able to at least be a 3-point threat, because right now, between him and Trent Noah and Ainsley Almanor, they're not even providing that threat right now. I mean, guys aren't worried about – they're being able to sag off, clog the lanes for Lamont Butler, and try and suck down on Andrew Carr and Amari. I need him to be a 3-point threat. I think that's the only way that this team's going to be able to get any better, because right now he has to play.
Yeah. No. Yeah, I think every guy on the bench, we're going to say essentially the exact same thing. When your bench combines for a whopping 5 points, I think every single one of them, we're just going to kind of say they were essentially a non-factor.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree. Like, Travis, Ainsley, Noah, like, you guys are out there to be shooters. Like, you're going to have to shoot, and you're going to have to make some shots. Like, and to your point, you got to at least be a threat. And especially with, like, Lamont and Ortega out there, let those guys drive to the lane. But, like, you got to be able to be a threat to where those shooters can't leave.
Catch and shoot. That's what I'm asking for, man.
Yeah. So, yeah, I don't have a lot of thoughts on, those 3 guys other than they didn't really give you anything, I guess. But yeah, I mean, got to be able to shoot it a little better and, take the open ones and make them.
Yeah. And you know who I'd love to see a lot more if he could get the ball past the timeline without getting picked? If we could just, I don't know what's up with the handles with Colin, but I
Yeah,
love what he brings you just from an athletic standpoint and defensively. I mean, obviously, defensively, he struggled a little bit in this game. Pettiford's a little bit shorter and quicker than he is. So he did struggle a little bit, but even at that point, he was still our best option for most of those guys. He's got to be able, when he's going to be able to run the one or even the two, he's got to be able to handle the ball somewhat consistently. And right now, he's just not giving you that at all.
yeah. I thought he played all right. I mean, he was obviously the best of any of the guys off the bench, and you saw that with his almost 15 minutes. I don't love Colin Chandler at the one. If you promise me he's going to play more of the two, and you're going to have him out there maybe even with Lamont to handle the ball, I don't hate it as much. But yeah, I mean, I watched this game from my phone at the NKU game, and at one point NKU was kind of going on a run, and I was paying attention to that, and I looked down, and I think Kentucky had cut it to 8 or 9, and then I just instantly see Colin Chandler get his pocket pick from before crossing half court that led to a run out dunk, and it's just like killer turnovers at bad times, and like stuff you just can't have happen at this level. You got to have guys that can get the ball across half court in a one-on-one matchup, let alone.
Yeah, and that's all I'm saying. If you could put money on like any sort of prop bet, it would either be Colin getting picked before he gets to half court, Lamont missing an open layup, and Ortega lately getting into foul trouble. It's just what it seems like all the most likely bets.
Yeah, we got a lot of those. I mean, even with how good he's playing, you're still going to get Amari to throw the ball to the third row at some point in the game. So, I mean, there's
Amari's just got one that goes 17 rows into the stands, and you're like, where the hell were you throwing that ball?
There's going to be a moment where BG decides it's BG time, and he's going to go one-on-one and, do something horrendous. So, yeah, we got a lot of those props. So if DraftKings would put those up, I would smack them.
Yeah, you know what I really want to do especially for Brandon Garrison? I want it to be like the old Boogie Cousins, where it's like to call me. I want to leak out his phone number to opposing fan bases the night before a game.
Yeah.
That way it gets him a little riled and plays with some energy and passion. Because you see, like the Oklahoma game, when he's got the energy, the passion, and the want-to, he can be really good. So if you can find out BG's phone number, I'll send it out to the LSU guys. I'll send it out to Missouri fans. I'll get that thing circulating. And then, when he does get a new phone, we'll find a new phone number. We'll keep doing it until,
right. Yeah.
Just keep it going. Keep it going.
I'm not going to say I'm going to put his phone number out there, but no. No, I think what we should do, to your point about the props, is next time we watch a game together, we're just going to have to play, like, shot bingo, and it's just going to be like, oh, there's Amari's ball to the third row, drink. Oh, there's Colin Chandler getting his pocket pick, drink. Lamont missed layup, drink.
Man,
be hammered.
Very much would be. And the crazy thing is about all of these stats is like I'm looking at all of these and it's like 4 of 17 from the 3, and you had 18 turnovers. All of this, Owe only scores 4 points, and you still only lost by 16. Like I know 16 is a big number, but you're also talking about Lamont missing easy layups. Starting with 6 turnovers to start the half, going 11 minutes without a field goal. I mean, there's so many things that in this game that if you just take, one of those out, it's just like, man, this game is so much closer. So at the end of the day, with, I think the Jaxson news at the end of the game really compounds on it, makes everybody feel a little bit worse.
Yeah.
There's just certain things that obviously you can't take them out because if you could, it would change the entire game. But I feel a little bit better from this game, just showing that, we can do this many things wrong and still keep in with, who's perceived to be the best team in the country.
Yeah, I mean, and I fully do believe that they're the best team in the country, and that was kind of my point when we first started this, is like, as bad as, you can't make mistakes and expect to beat Auburn, or at least that many mistakes, and the Cats made a ton of them. Like, you're going to have to play really well to beat Auburn, but that doesn't mean, like, if we see them in the SEC tournament or, another time this year, I mean, obviously we're not going to be the favorites to go beat them, but if you clean up some of that stuff, you can have it be a one possession game with 4 or 5 minutes to go, and then who knows what happens? Somebody gets hot and you win the game. So I do agree with you in kind of the bigger picture thing of like I still feel like this team can find ways to win against really good teams.
Yeah, and just speaking to Auburn, it's just the fact that they've won a good amount of games without Janiah Broome. They just have so many guys that can go.
They're so deep.
They just the depth on the team is crazy. Like we mentioned, Todd Pettiford, 21 points. Miles Kelly banks in back-to-back threes, and he gets 31. Hits 9 for 14 from three. And Chad Baker-Mazara, I swear, if he was on our team, he'd probably be like one of my favorite players. But since he's on another team, he's got to be the
25-year-old bum.
He's got to be the most annoying, cocky player I've ever seen. And, he's one of those guys, probably like Kerr is to other guys, where he's just annoying and, a nuisance.
The guy's older than...
I would love to have him on this team.
The guy's older than Tyler Hero, Emmanuel Quickly, and Tyrese Maxey. But, I mean, that's just the way college basketball is now, man. Like, we're going to have to go find a couple of 24 and 25-year-olds again next year to do it all again. But, yeah. But, yeah, you want to talk any more on this game, or you want to get to kind of the big picture with Jaxson and everything?
Well, if you want to increase that age by one more, if they're looking for a 26-year-old, I'll tell you what, I'll get the shots up.
No, stop.
I'll get the shots up, and I'm gonna crash the glass.
No.
All right, I won't call Coach Pope. I'll let him leave on that one. But obviously Tuesday night, big game for the Cats and big game for the SEC standings. Play LSU and former Wildcat Damian Collins at 7 p.m. at Rupp Arena. What do you think about this LSU team? They're obviously one of the worst in the SEC. 14 and 15, they've lost 3 straight. Must win for the Cats.
Must win. I would actually argue, even though that this is going to sound weird because they beat South Carolina, I think they're the worst team in the conference.
South Carolina just beat Arkansas.
Exactly. And South Carolina's played a lot of really good teams really close, and they've shown they can win. LSU has gotten blown out in just about every game besides the 3 that they won. They played Ole Miss pretty close, but other than that, they've kind of gotten ran.
Yeah, they only lost to Tennessee by 6, so they got some close games.
That's true, and they were leading at one point in Florida, but then Florida just pulled away. At Rupp, you have to take care of business. I expect a big bounce back game from Ortega. Maybe similar to we saw him play really poor at Alabama, and then he has his best game of the season against Oklahoma. I don't know if we're going to get him to score our final 18 again, but I think this should be a pretty. I don't know if it will be a feel-good win, but I expect the Cats to play pretty well, especially in the second half, and win it pretty easily.
Yeah, something we just can't have happen is, I don't know if you remember that LSU Arkansas the first time they played, where Damian Collins got that game-winning block to help seal that game. Can't have the former Cat coming in and doing something like that, obviously. Yeah, but guys, watch out for Cam Carter. He's averaging 17 points per game, and Jordan Sears averaging 12 a game.
Yep.
Just guys to look out for. Obviously, if the Cats are going to win this game, you're going to need guys. At this point, it's not even called stepping up. They just got to do their job. You know what's on the line. Kerr and Jaxson are not coming back. Guys have just got to – this is their job now. There's no more stepping up. You just have to fill in. I think they're going to win this game. I really do. If they do lose, I think we have a whole other topic of conversation for the rest of the season going forward. I think Kobe Bryant is going to continue that big run that he's been, kind of consistently having as of late. I think he's really going to, understand, he is this offense at the moment. Because right now, with how inconsistent Ortega's been, Kobe's really, him and Amari have probably been the 2 most consistent offensively.
Yeah, I agree. And, like the point I brought up earlier, like I do think it's positive to see Pope played the starter so much outside of Ortega, who was in foul trouble. So it'll be nice to just see Pope really kind of shorten this rotation. He's going to have to. He obviously felt like he had to against Auburn, and I expect Kentucky to win pretty easily. I don't know if you're ready for score predictions yet, or if we want to come back to that at the very end. I'll say Kentucky scores 85, like you were kind of saying we needed to get to. So we'll go 85-71. I think this game's going to play out similar to Vandy at home. Like the first half, we're probably going to be a little frustrated. It's going to be a 3 to 5 point game at halftime, and then we pull away second half.
How about a hot start? What do you think? Get a hot start and just control this game by 10 the whole way? What do you think about that?
I would love it. You would hear no complaints out of me.
Yeah. I kind of think that's what's going to happen to this one. I think the starters come out, kind of, establish their dominance, get us out to 6-point lead or so until we hand it over to the reserves. And really, it's about what those reserves do. Like we mentioned in the game against Auburn, they were nothing. They gave no contributions at all. The starting five is good, even with Jaxson taking a step. You got to have some contribution from somebody. The offense. I mean, you can't have 5 points from your bench. At that point, the starters are going to have to play 40 minutes apiece. And, I love Amari playing as much as you can, but I just don't know if he's got 40 every game in the tank.
No. But yeah, if you can keep him at that 31 mark, I feel a lot better in general. But, to your real quick point about like the starters still being good, as good as I think Jaxson Robinson is, and I think he obviously had the potential and was playing like maybe the best player on this team before he got hurt. You could potentially, if it was going to be him or somebody else, it had to be one of the guards, like because Kobe Brea, there's not a huge step down there. So, like this team would be a lot worse if you lost Lamont for the year or Amari Williams or even Andrew Carr. Like the drop off is a lot bigger between those guys versus what it is to Jaxson to Kobe Brea. So
yeah, I'll agree to a certain extent. I don't know if I'd push the Lamont one on there, but I will agree with the Amari.
I mean, we saw what happened when you had to play Travis Perry 30-plus minutes. Like,
yeah, we've seen what we had when we've had to play these other guys 30 minutes. I mean, there's been no rhyme or reason to SEC play, even with everybody healthy, even with one guy out. So I mean, it's hard to pick and choose. I mean, obviously, this team is so inconsistent. It's unbelievable. And it's so frustrating because you see, the highlights of the team. You see, what they can do. You see these bits and pieces, and you're just like, man, if they can get it all together and finally click, we're talking about, making a deep tournament run, talking about, potentially going to the weekend in the SEC tournament. Yep. But then you see games like Oklahoma, even though where we did get the win, you see it all kind of spiral. The game against Texas, you see the ability for us to be in contention with great teams, but also lose to teams that are, on the tournament bubble.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a weird year. Part of that is just college basketball all around, outside of like maybe the top 3 teams and Houston, Duke, and Auburn. Like everybody's kind of had some bad and weird losses. But without Jaxson, what are your kind of expectations versus before the news versus now, and like where you think this team can kind of finish in March?
I mean, really, it pushes everybody a ring up, and that's the biggest thing that I told you. I would be fine with having Jaxson out there just as the offensive threat. The defense plays a different brand of basketball when Jackson's out there. I mean, you're able to get more open looks for Ansley where he doesn't have to create his own shot. More open looks for Kobe Brea. Just that threat of him being out there, I thought was very valuable to this team. And even I think his shot creating and his shot making was a little bit overrated to where he was at during the season. I think this is a huge blow. I think it's probably the second least guy you could afford to lose. Maybe even throwing Andrew Carr in there. I think it's going to be really tough for this team to get past. I mean, Sweet 16, I think, is probably like the highlight of that because, I mean, you're seeing it right now. We can't get hot from 3. Like, even if we do, we're only shooting 20 of them and going 11 of 20. While it's nice percentage-wise, it's really not going to change the impact of a game that much. I mean, I don't want to sound like the bearer of bad news, but I think, obviously I'm not satisfied with it, but I think for the team outlook and how the team's playing right now, I think a Sweet 16 is probably the best thing that could happen.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I mean, the thing with like Jaxson is the brutal thing is like he was playing so well before he got hurt. Like since Georgia, he's been phenomenal. Like he was really starting to kind of figure it out, and we were getting the guy that we kind of had all talked ourselves into from the beginning of the year, right? And I said before the season, like, this team I think is going to be really good, but you kind of need a guy that, can be your elite level scorer. And for pretty much all the non-conference, you didn't really have that. It was just collective group effort wins, and then you started to really see Jaxson take on that role. I agree with you. It's obviously a huge blow. The thing is, like we talked about in this game, like I still think Kentucky, even without him, their starting 5 is good enough. Like they can get hot and beat really anybody. And to your point, if some stuff goes right here or there, even in this Auburn game, it could have been a 1 or 2 score game down the stretch, and then again, who knows what happens? Kobe Bryant maybe gets hot, knocks down a couple threes, and you find a way to win it. I'm not obviously they're not going to be the favorite against a lot of teams, but I also think you're a lot more susceptible to losing to worse teams without Jaxson. Like we've already seen this team lose to some bad teams, but like without Jaxson, I think that range becomes even wider. So this can be a team that I think can make a Sweet 16, possibly even an Elite 8. We could also lose to a 12 or 13 seed in the first round. So it's going to be a stressful march. But yeah, I definitely think I thought with Jaxson and a fully healthy team, this team was a team that could make a run to an Elite 8, possibly a Final Four, and I don't see that happening now.
Yeah, I think a 2-game sequence that really just, shows off your point and your example that you made. The Tennessee game followed right by the Texas game. You saw the ability to them to knock off a top 5 team in Tennessee, and then the ability to lose right after. So, like you said, I think the floor is just really what's most hindered by this. I mean, at the least, you lose a guy who's going to get you anywhere from 10 to 13 points, usually on his worst days. And the part that really kills me is that none of these guys played their best basketball together. And that's the part that I feel like really kind of stinks, is that as soon as you started getting Amari Williams and Jaxson Robinson were playing really well together, you didn't have Lamont and Ortega started struggling. When Ortega was playing really well earlier in the season, Jaxson really wasn't a factor. Amari wasn't as much of a factor. Obviously, we're playing a lot of games of what ifs. I would just love to see this team fully healthy. Obviously, we're not going to get it, but fully healthy, playing to their best potential in March.
I think we've seen it one time, and it was maybe the game of the year against Florida. Like, I feel like that was really the one time where they were kind of all clicking, to your point. The other part of it, like, kind of the underrated part of this is, like, the selection committee is, mentioned in years past, like, if they know someone's hurt but is coming back, they'll essentially not weigh those losses as much. But if they know someone's not coming back, then they judge it as, what are you without them? So even if we had the threat of Jaxson coming back, even dropping a few games, like, you could still be a 3 or a 4 seed. Now they know Jackson's not coming back, and let's say you lose to Missouri or something, like, and you fall to a 5 or 6 seed. Obviously, you're playing. If you're a 6 seed, you're playing one of those at-large last 4 in teams, and that's a team like Arkansas that we've seen them lose to at home, like Texas, possibly Oklahoma, who you had to go to the wire with. So, like, that's the other part of it, is like your first round game might be significantly harder just because the committee knows that Jackson's not coming back.
Yeah, well, thanks for that bummer. I hadn't really thought about that all day.
And all right, fine. We're still winning number 9 this year. This team will figure it out. Brandon Garrison will prove us all wrong, and he'll be a first-round pick by the time the season's over.
Man, I'd love to see it. From your lips to God's ears, I'd love to see it. But I don't know if I actually made my score prediction. I'll have the Cats winning this by 10, 88-78. Hopefully, LSU is not a great defensive team. They are long and they are athletic, which I think might give us a little trouble early. But I'm really hoping, just the pace of play that we have. I want to keep this team pushing the ball down the floor. Because that's how we get Ortega, open drives to the basket. That's maybe Lamont can finish in the open court. I'm not sure. Maybe not. Probably not. Being honest. But
before this game, I felt like it's gotten better. I mean, I know he hasn't played a ton, but
that's probably why you feel like it's gotten better, is because he hasn't played a ton. But, just the pace of play is really my big thing to watch for in this LSU game. I think if they get up and down the court, I think they'll be able to win this game pretty easily. I got them winning by 10 points. I got Kobe Bryant being the MVP. I think he goes for more than 20 again in this one.
Yeah, and I'll, alluded to it earlier. I'll take a big bounce back from Ortega. This is, to your point, the kind of game, up and down pace. He can get those driving lanes, and I don't know what his over-under is going to be on DraftKings, but I fully expect him to score 20 tomorrow.
All right, well, BBN, we're going to leave that on the high note there. That's going to be all from us for the Cats Talk podcast. Follow us on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter. We're everywhere. You get your podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio. Follow us wherever you can. That being said, go Big Blue.
Go Big Blue.